Goals galore tonight in the Champions League games. I watched 2 games of football and I saw 13 goals. 13 goals. Unbelievable night of football, whichever games you watched, to be honest. I mean, we'll talk about the Liverpool one first because Liverpool obviously were 1-0 down, needed to get a result at Anfield. Always felt like they probably would get a result at Anfield. Going away to Galatasaray and Turkey in general is pretty difficult to do, and to come back just 1-0 down, I don't think that was actually a bad thing necessarily. However, after their game against Spurs at the weekend, you maybe thought that they would struggle, but a European night at Anfield is just something different. Liverpool just get it done, and they were unbelievable tonight. So good. From the very first minute they were on it. They could have won this game 8, 9, 10-0, honestly. Galatasaray never looked like scoring a goal. They barely even had the ball in Liverpool's half. Liverpool completely dominant, and there were some specific performances from players that were unbelievable. Szoboszlai was absolutely everywhere. He had a performance that just encompassed this whole Liverpool performance tonight. Firstly, his goal, the finish was unbelievable. That corner looked like it was designed on the training ground for starters, but that it was designed for him to come onto it with his right foot, and the ball wasn't good enough for that. So he's improvised, and the finish with his left foot is just a joke. I mean, that was the first goal. Then he's gone on to win the penalty. Now, I think that's a very, very soft penalty, but nevertheless, he's done pretty well to win it. And then Ekitike's goal. He won't get registered with an assist for it because the ball that he played was to Salah and then Salah played the ball to Ekitike. But the ball he played to Salah is so, so good. Every time he got on the ball, he looked to move forward with it or pass forward or do something positive with it. And not only that, he put himself about off the ball. Liverpool in general, their press was incredible tonight. And Szoboszlai just showed that he can do it all. Similar, very similar to Declan Rice's performance last night. The penalty that Salah took was actually awful, to be honest. He had a very difficult first half because he did have opportunities in that first half. The penalty, I don't even know what, I think he's tried to like Panenka it or not quite Panenka it, but play it through the middle and he's just dragged it. It's a terrible, terrible penalty. However, he took his goal unbelievably well. In the second half, he definitely turned up. The ball he played across to Ekitike was brilliant for his goal. And then he took his goal, his actual goal, so, so well. That was like the Salah of old, that finish where he's cutting in. The little 1-2 with Wirtz was beautiful. He's cutting in and then whipping it into the left corner. Beautiful goal. And Florian Wirtz was another player that I thought had a really, really good game tonight. A really good game. When he gets on the ball in this sort of game where Liverpool have all of the possession and are playing in Galatasaray's half, he can really have an impact. His little quick 1-2s, his little quick movements with his feet, he has such impressive close control with the ball at his feet, and he can make things happen in a final third. There are teams, like we've seen it with Arsenal before, not last night, but we've seen it with Arsenal where they've got all of the ball and they just can't break teams down. Wirtz is really good in that situation because even in tight little pockets, in tight spaces, he will manoeuvre something. And he did that tonight. I thought he was really, really good. But this in general was a completely different performance to what we saw from Liverpool at Spurs. We saw Spurs completely, just not completely, but almost dominate Liverpool. They outworked Liverpool for sure. And tonight we saw the opposite. Liverpool off the ball, their press was unbelievable. They didn't let Galatasaray get the ball or put their foot on a ball, get a few passes together. They just didn't let that happen at all. It was brilliant from Liverpool. But the first game of the night, Barcelona versus Newcastle, 7-2. Now that was really a game of two halves. Newcastle started so incredibly well. They started brilliantly right on the front foot. I expected this to just be a domination from Barcelona at the Nou Camp. We saw in the first leg that it was actually pretty even. If anything, Newcastle were better and should have scored more goals than they did. And they needed a bigger lead going into this one. And they could have had that from the first leg, really. But Newcastle started this game so well. and it was the most open game you'll ever see. You'll ever see. Both defences, horrific. I mean, Barcelona, I don't know what Hansi Flick is doing. He's almost putting on an Ange Postecoglou impression. The high line is just... I don't get it. Can he not see that it is costing them so many goals? They haven't kept a clean sheet in God knows how long. I don't get it. And yeah, I get that they want to keep themselves high up the pitch so that when they win the ball back, or you're trying to win the ball back high, I get that. But it so often doesn't work, and it so often leads to an opposition goal that I'm not sure it really works. I'm not sure it works. But Yamal had a really hit and miss performance, I thought. I mean, the back heel for... I can't remember which Newcastle goal it was, but, well, one of Elanga's, obviously. But he's played a back heel in his own half. I think it was terrible. I don't know how he's kind of got away with playing that. But the reason he's got away with playing that terrible back heel is because of the impact he had on the game, mainly in the second half. When Newcastle and Barcelona came out in the second half, it was a different Barcelona. It looked like Barcelona realised that a few quick passes could essentially just bypass the whole Newcastle team. Lewandowski, for one of the goals, it was Fermin Lopez goal. He's dropped deep to make space because Dan Burn has just followed him. And I think that was the key, that Newcastle were just playing a complete man-to-man system. Like, it was one Newcastle man on one Barcelona man. So if they moved positions in any way, then there was so much space. So Lewandowski drops deep, takes down Burn, or whichever centre-back it was with him. And then Raphinha just drifts across to take his player with him. That leaves a huge gap for Fermin Lopez. And then a couple of, literally just two passes. The defender into Raphinha, Raphinha into the space. And it's a goal. And literally the same could be said for Barcelona's defence. It was a mess defensively from both sides. An absolute mess. But Elanga grabbed 2 goals and he struggled before those 2 goals because he had possession quite a few times in good positions and he'd just run it off the pitch or he'd just lose the ball. There are a couple times when he could have made something and he just lost the ball. It wasn't great. But in general, the second half was just a display from the likes of Raphinha, Pedri, Fermin Lopez, Yamal. They just got on the ball and completely balled out. And Newcastle could do nothing about it, especially with this man-to-man system that they were trying to employ for some reason. And I guess the reason they were trying to employ it is because it did work in the first half. They did manage to get tight to these players and not give them time. But any little bit of movement or quick, accurate, precise passing just completely destroys it. And they're carved apart. And then that happened a few times. And after the first couple of goals in the second half, the game was just done. Completely done. But one player that is worth mentioning from a Newcastle perspective, Lewis Hall had another fantastic game. He has been fantastic this season. And it's not just offensively, it's not just going forward either. In the first leg, we saw defensively he was very, very solid. He didn't let Yamal have a lot. Now, that is very different in this game, of course. But in the first leg, he was also very good going forward. Yamal had to track back a lot. And you don't see it very often where a defender will kind of lock up Yamal and have a presence going forward. And he did. And in this game, it was way more the attacking presence. The assist he got for the goal was absolutely brilliant. The ball across was lovely. And then he had a role in the second goal as well. Him and Barnes seemed to have a real connection down that left side. And I genuinely do think that he is the best left-back in the Premier League this season. And I think he's the best English left-back. I think he should be starting for England at the World Cup. I think if we'd have seen Nico O'Reilly carry on at left-back for the whole season, then there'd be a debate. I don't think Luke Shaw is a thing here now. I think Lewis Hall has to start at the World Cup. But yeah, in the end, Barca absolutely demolished Newcastle. Some other results, Bayern Munich, they were already, 6-1 up. So that ended 10-2 after a 4-1 tonight. Spurs did actually get a win against Atletico Madrid. I didn't watch that game, so I'm not quite sure what the performance was like, but it seems like Xavi Simons had a very good game. And it didn't really matter because they didn't score enough goals and they didn't go through. So we've now got the Quarter-final games locked in. PSG versus Liverpool, Bayern versus Madrid. That side of the draw is tasty. Two real tasty fixtures. I can't wait to watch those ties. And then the other side, you've got Barcelona versus Atletico Madrid and Arsenal versus Sporting. Now, Arsenal just have a clear run to the semi-final. And to be honest, the way that Barca are playing, potentially a clear run to the final. Because a team like Arsenal can exploit Barca's terrible high line much better than other teams will. And they're much more defensively solid. I think that will be a real interesting game. I hope we get to see that. I hope we get to see Arsenal versus Barcelona. Because this is really where Flick's kind of tactics and setup could come unstuck. I think Arsenal could thrive against it. But these other quarter-final ties, like I say, Bayern Madrid is going to be huge. PSG Liverpool is going to be huge. I cannot wait. But that is all for this one. If you like the video, make sure you hit like. Make sure you subscribe. It really helps. And I'll see you in the next one.